Borderline Youper here again. I know you haven't heard from me in a while, but I figured I'd do a how-to video on changing leaf springs on a 2000 Wilderness Fleetwood camper. We were recently camping in lower Michigan, the lower peninsula, and I broke a leaf spring. This leaf spring right here that I already replaced, this brand new one. Right here, this one, as you can see, is brand new. It actually snapped right here where I'm pointing at and broke. Good thing I didn't lose it on the highway because the axle would have came right off, but ended up going to Tractor Supply and getting some parts I needed and got by and made it home. But the spring was too long. When I purchased at Tractor Supply, they didn't have the right length. I needed a 23-inch length spring, which the 23-inch measurement is from this middle of this eyelet to the middle of that eyelet. That's how you measure a leaf spring, 23 inches. Then you also got from this point to the center is a measurement, and then from, if you draw an imaginary line across here, from there down, so you have your travel of your leaf spring, which is 1.5 inches, or 3.5 inches, I mean. And then the leaf spring measurement here, this direction, is 1.5 inches. So I gotta get on the back one here, and I sprayed them with WD-40, but I think I'm going to throw some PB Blaster at them too. See, the trailer's all blocked up on good old blocks, 6x6 blocks and 2x4s. And I also got boards underneath the axles too, just in case they drop. You know, safety first. You don't want things falling on you. Go get some PB Blaster. Good old PB Blaster. Definitely need to turn that down. Oh, I see that adjustment thing that's on there just doesn't allow you to push the cap as hard, that's all. That's how that works. I gotta get some of these bolts. This stuff sticks a little better than WD. No offense against WD-40, but when I was taking these bolts off at the campground, when I repaired this at the campground, that spring, and I changed it out to get us back home, so I had to do something so I could get back home. I used PB Blaster, a 3/8 ratchet, and a pipe to get these broke loose. I got a little more tools to choose from here at home. I got air impact and big old breaker bar, and I can break these things loose. First, I think we're gonna try to break these loose down here. That's the size. Where's the breaker bar? Oh, my hand's in the way. That ain't gonna work, right? It's a little hard to do this while trying to record and hold the phone at the same time. Oh, that's tight. We gotta push. Let's go this way. Come on. No, look at her go. Yeah. 20-year-old bolts. This is, like I said, a 2000 model, and they're coming off. I don't think anybody's ever replaced these leaf springs because the bushings and that were pretty wore. So I put new bushings and stuff and stabilizer and just break these loose, and then I think I'll take the air ratchet to it. I don't have to sit there and spin these forever with this thing like I had to do at the campground. That would have been an interesting video to do too, with what you have. Okay, they're broke loose. Good old air ratchet. Air tools are nice. Always got to remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. That's the way to go. That's a famous saying my dad passed down to me. Oh. I don't think the air ratchet's gonna have enough oomph to get these off yet. There ain't enough on the air ratchet. Too rusty. It's nice to have something like that, but don't do much for torque. And there's no way to adjust it. One size is one size. How the air compressor kicked on, and you probably can't hear me. Oh, so that means I gotta go get good old Armstrong ratchet. So I can't get in there with the air impact. Okay, good old arm power. I got it on righty-tighty. I think I'm gonna do the magic of video and just stop recording this and take it all apart and then show it. There we go. Bolts are removed from the bottom of the leaf spring. Here's the plate that holds the U-bolts together. That's off. There's the U-bolt. So that's all apart. Now, next. Oh, always fun laying on the ground, isn't it? Next thing we gotta do is take these bolts out for the shackles. Pull that all apart so we can get the leaf spring off. It's a nice shiny new U-bolts there. I know they're made in China. Wish they were made in America, the springs, but I couldn't find no 23-inch springs in USA. 25-inch were easy to find in USA, but these 23-inch guys, I couldn't find them. And you always go for the cheapest, right? Granted, it's not American made. Yeah, what happened is the other leaf spring you can see here was too long and it was rubbing up against this pretty hard on the way home, because with it being too long, it was pushing up against here and wasn't able to flex like it should. But when you're in a pickle, you need to get things fixed and you can't get the right length. What are you gonna do but improvise and put what you can find on there and make it home? I also had to put the jack underneath here so I could support the axle. So I take the leaf springs out, the axle won't drop. Still got it on the tires over on that side, you can see it. And then I got the wheel chocks there for safety. There it is. Well, the leaf spring's out. So you can see, there she is laying on the ground. Now, the only reason why I'm replacing both of these, and I'm replacing all four, what I've read on the internet and around places is they say you shouldn't replace just one, because over time the metal gets fatigued, you know, and so if you replace one spring, that one, the metal isn't as fatigued as the one in the old metal on the old spring. So what it'll do is put a lot more pressure on the old spring and might cause it to break. So I recommend replacing both leaf springs on one side. I'm just doing all four because that's the way I roll. Usually when I do a project, I do the whole thing anytime I do a project, so I know it's all brand new and there's nothing that can fail. Even new stuff can fail though. Oh, let's see here. I gotta get this bushing out. I put a new bushing in here. That's the other reason why I'm replacing everything too, is because the bolts will wear out over time and the bushings wear out over time, and just, if you got it apart, you might as well do it and do it right first time. Might have to go get a screwdriver. I just don't want to come out of here. All the rest of the bushings came out nice. That took a little swear words to get out of there. It's a good thing I didn't have the camera on at that point. But it's wore out on one side because of the bolt, so I got to replace these. Tightens things up. I know they're still a little slack, but that's within the spring. But these all run on a nice nylon bushing. So they got more Tractor Supply. I'm not sponsored by them or nothing, but that's where I picked up all these parts to fix this thing. Could have got them off the line off the internet, but I already had bought some when I was downstate from Tractor Supply. So I figured, well, I'll just buy the rest from there. So, and these only go in easy from one way. So actually this one, the other one went in easy from the back side, and this one don't want to go in easy at all. A little 2x4 action. Tap it in here. I'm gonna put a bolt in it actually, and that way I won't peen the bushing that way. It's all in there. That's that. Now, I got the hangers over here. Oops. I can put more blocks underneath the axle just in case. Leaf spring. What I think I'm going to do first is mount the U-bolt in the plate. I think that's what I did on that one. And it ended up being easier, and then ended up putting the eye bolts in. So I bought all new U-bolts because the old ones are all rusty. There's no sense of trying to fight them ones back on. I think all said and done, by the time I get done replacing all the leaf springs and that on this thing, I'll have like probably 350 bucks, 400 bucks into this thing. Put all new leaf springs and hardware to go with it. I mean, you can buy new stabilizer links, but I mean, they're not really wore out. The bushings weren't completely wore out, so it shouldn't be no big deal. I mean, the stabilizer links and then that plate, you can buy that plate too. That really doesn't wear out, so I didn't buy any of that stuff, because you can buy a whole trailer kit. You can get all these pieces, you know, all new, but then you have to sit there and cut all this off and re-weld it. Don't need to do that. That's a lot of fabricating. Looks like this axle is actually back farther than what it should be. Well, it might be because of that spring being too long, so, and that would help. My gas mileage on my pickup truck wasn't doing too good. I'm pulling this with a 1/2 ton Chevy Silverado, and it should pull it just fine, but man, it was pulling hard. But I can see that if the axle is shifted, that means it's not pulling straight, so then it would pull harder. So, okay, well, I need 2 hands again. Get this spring mounted up. This bolt here, there we go. This bolt here is a little notch, and it lines up on the axle on the underside of this. There's a hole in there, and then there's a hole on the plate, and that's what holds the axle from shifting. And okay, got the leaf spring mounted to the axle. Then 2 new U-bolts. Look at them pretty bolts. Now the next thing is, looks like it just got to go straight up, and then this will line up in here. And then we just put 2 plates on that side, and we should be golden. Let's jack this thing up here and see if we can't get it to line up. That's pretty close, if I do say so myself. Let's see, where are my bolts? Where are bolts at? Oh, that I'll use for that. Are these made in China too? Probably are. Don't you just love packaging? Got that bolt in, took a little doing, but I got her in there. Now, the shackle links. So, those, what did I do with them? That's these deals. Come on. Packaging. And then a little ridge there. You can see it. And that holds the bolt into the plates. So I stick those on there like that. I don't got no good way of standing up the camera and doing this all at one time. Through when I'm pushing that. Almost seems like it needs to go up more. It's hard to film and there goes my bolt. Way back there. Well, the first side is all finished. I got new springs, new shackles. Tires are back on. This side is complete. Now we'll go around to the other side. See, Wilderness Fleetwood. My beautiful corn crop. And there's the other side. All the block work. Get to blocking it up. My 2 little helpers helping me out take the springs off the camper with their wrenches. Now we got the tires back off of this side, and I just PB blasted all the bolts, letting them sit so that the PB blaster works. My big helpers here are trying to take the lug bolts back off the axle. Well, the bolts won't come out of the camper very well, so I got some persuasion. Let's see if I can get them to come out. That one's stuck in the mount to the camper, and so is the middle one. Well, the persuasion instrument worked. Bolts came out. Now I gotta put my bushings back in again. I got another little helper today. Isn't she adorable? On her bike. Said I can't believe how expensive these bushings are. For 4 of these, it's 13 bucks. Granted, maybe a Tractor Supply is a little high on them, but you know, try to support the local guy here. Well, my 2x4s are used because I have them underneath the axles holding them up. Except for this one. So, just gently tap this in. Let's switch hands with the camera here. Let's see. Take one of these old bolts, stick it in here so that I'm not pounding on the thing anymore because I'm starting to peen it. This will keep the bolt from there we go. Pull the old bolt back out and voila! New bushing in. Get some new bolts. Yeah, these bolts are kind of wore. You can see that one is pretty wore out. The nylon bushings were shot in the spring. Granted, these springs probably could still work, but like I said, when I do a project, I usually just put it all in new, because if I don't, it'll just break on me anyway, and then I'll be doing it later. Put it all in new. So, this stabilizer link, it's a spring link, so you got dual axles and they float. Goes in here. Bolt that in. Got the Lucy. I think I'm gonna have to hold the backside because it's supposed to hammer in, but as it goes, it'll pull it in there. Except for when it falls off the wrench, because you're holding your camera. I'm trying to do this at the same time. So in order to hold the wrench to get things good and tight, because you know you can't hold both with both hands very well, just stick a 2x4 in between the frame and the wrench and hold it on the backside, and then go ahead and crank down on your ratchet and you'll be able to tighten it up real easy instead of trying to hold both of them at the same time. Just a little tip to help you out. I put the U-bolts on there. I got that shim in there as far as it would go by beating it in there. Don't seem like it wants to go any further. We got the U-bolts on. Next we're going to put a spring on, and I found that it's easier to put the spring on to bolt it up to U-bolts first rather than put this thing in the shackles. You know, where mount bolts to the trailer. It's better off to bolt the U-bolts up first to the axle, and then get the bolts in via jacking the axle up and down and moving the axle. Because to get this little notch here to line up in the axle and U-bolt plate, it's a little more difficult. So that went way easier than the last two times. Must be getting better at it. I got the bolts through the holes, and we just gotta tighten them up now and strap the spring up to the axle. And then it looks like it. Well, I have one stubborn nut that wouldn't come off. So, got the old jigsaw with a metal blade, but the teeth are already gone on it. I figured it would cut the bolt, but she's not having too much luck here. So, off to another metal blade, I guess. Well, there it is. Both springs have been replaced. All new bolts and hardware. New bushings and everything. That side's all done too over there. Just gotta put the tires back on this side and we'll have her all done. Brand new springs on a Wilderness Fleetwood camper. New bushings. It won't be all sloppy. You can see that was an old bushing, all wore out. Some of the bolts are starting to wear, like that one, just because of the bushings were gone. So it was due. Since one of the springs broke, it was due. Hopefully this thing will pull a lot better with my half-ton pickup truck. The axles will be straight anyway. I hope this helps people out on their projects. Have a good one. Borderline Youper out.